All right, I wanted to welcome Tony Greer from TG Macro onto the show. I really thought this was a great opportunity for me to just pick your brain about, you've been on the trading floors, you've been had a long career, and I just really wanted to pick your brain on a story or two of just what you learned from the market. So first off, you started off in on the trading floors. Where were you trading, and what were you trading, and how did you start your career?
Yeah, so getting out of college, I was adamant about getting a job on a trading desk because my dad was a trader and I was following his footsteps, kind of thing. So my first job, I worked on a forward trading desk on the FX desk in the Treasury Department of Sumitomo Bank on the 107th floor of the first tower World Trade Center. Um, from there, I went and traded spot foreign exchange at Union Bank of Switzerland up on Park Avenue for 2 years. And I spent 6 months of that in the Zurich Treasury Department, where I had the opportunity to quote some like really big currency forwards for a great client, and wound up coming back for Christmas and meeting that client. And the client was Goldman Sachs, and the guy hired me essentially on the spot, or
That's
essentially
awesome.
was like, you should come and talk to us. I'd love to have you guys working with us. So then I joined Goldman in 93. And really, that's where I learned everything that I know about trading, and really about the rigor, because the people there are all living and breathing every
Yeah.
basis point of P&L. And it's not exactly the same in the treasury departments of big banks. So that's where you learn to play trading game like a New York Yankee, and be
Yeah.
the best that you can be. I traded commodities there. Um, I've traded the gold book there, traded gold options there, and sat in some pretty hairy situations on the trading desk through from 93 to 2000. I left after the firm went public and tried to do something on my own because I thought I was smart, and thought that I was being really, really brilliant by investing in tech stocks for the last 5 years, and had made some money. And the firm went public, and I wanted to go and do this on my own. And I was going to ride the tech bull market to the moon, and sat down in March of 2000 to trade tech stocks in the bull market. And as you know, that was the top, and they basically got
Yeah.
halved from there. So that was a really valuable lesson for me to live through. Um, from there, after 2 years of trading in that market, I basically went onto the sell side. I looked at my Rolodex and had enough people to talk to, and build an equity sales business, and basically spent the last 10 years of my career, what I call, unfortunately, except for one great long stay at a place called Dahlman Rose, that was like an anomaly
Yeah.
maverick sales trading firm, was playing pickup basketball with my career, and going from like different sales shops to another, and not loving the exact industry that I was in. But then
Yeah.
decided to go out on my own in 2016 and started writing the Morning Navigator. And here we are. I just started
Yeah.
volume 9.
That's awesome. It's a great letter, and thanks for sharing. So, listen, what I really wanted to get out of you is, can you share a pivotal moment in your trading career that changed how you approach the markets? Like, what was the lesson learned, and what is it that kind of changed the way you look at the markets and the way you trade?
You know, it's reflexively, you want to go back to some of the biggest things that ever happened to you. But one of the most impactful things that has affected and directly impacted my performance in trading is, a couple of years ago, Jawad Mian had a conversation with Steve Cohen and left it up on his website, and it's called Inner Game. Right. And in that conversation, Steve Cohen said, pay attention to the conversation in your head, and that really spoke volumes to me, because I always remember sort of brushing off the conversation that I was having in my head, and sticking with whatever was like supporting, bias to my position, supportive bias to my position. Right. And when I started listening to the conversations in my head and paying attention to what those instincts mean, I started trading much better, for, a lack of a better way of describing it. Right. Things are going better. I'm making better decisions. And that, though, thinking about that and sort of forcing yourself to listen to, your brain is picking up stimulus from all kinds of things, and when it's saying something to you, it's because that stimulus is coming together and creating a message. So it
Yeah.
may not be something that's blatantly obvious to you, but it could be your brain that picked something up and is trying to transmit a message to you that you cannot understand yet. And so if you kind of pay attention to that, the kind of, because trading is all a battle. It's you against you. It's not the tape are just
Yeah.
numbers that make you make your decisions, but it's you against you from the get-go. And if you think about things like that and pay attention, that's just basically catering to the you against you conversation and making it less confrontational. And it makes me more transactional. And I'm an active trader. I'm not a guy that puts a position on
Yeah.
in my account and sits there and babysits it like this and stares at it and pets it. I
Yeah.
don't do that shit. I trade. My money's moving in and moving out, of things that are doing better and this and that. So when I listen to those conversations in my head, it makes me transactional. And it turns out that it leads me to better performance and better performing securities. So that's how I interpreted it. But man, when I heard him say that and then the way he expounded on it a little bit more, that was like a seminal moment for me, like something that was going on in my brain that I was doing wrong that he corrected. And when I paid attention to it, it worked. So when you ring the
It's
bell and the bell rings, you ring the bell as many times you can when the dog salivates. I mean,
it's amazing you talk about that because what I have always found is that there's this one part of my voice in my brain that basically is me trying to justify the trade I'm in with looking for confirmation bias, so
Yes.
something that is confirming what it is. So I'm long gold, so I'm looking for, okay, I'm long gold, still this, it's still that, and you're looking for things to justify. But then there's a second voice that's like an intuition that something is wrong, or this is an opportunity. And the thing is that those two voices sound the same, and you actually have to be able to separate the intuition from the one of you just having this biased conversation with yourself to kind of justify. And I don't know, does that make sense to you? Like, is that the way you look at it too?
It does. It does totally, because it's like, I have, man, I have other representations of that conversation in my head, and I talk about it with guys in my Slack channel. It's like, there's always this reaction, like when there's good news out and the stock is going up, right? You're like cheering and you're like, yeah, like, and you're high-fiving guys that have the position on, like literally or figuratively on the Bloomberg or whatever. And my new thing is to notice that when you're high-fiving with one hand, make sure you're hitting the sell button with the other hand. Like, as in, hit his
It's so true.
give the guy the high five and then smack the sell button and let some go. Right. It's just because, like, you've done it so many times and realize when you look back, you're like, what was I doing at the highs? Oh yeah, I was cheerleading. That's right. I was telling myself how smart I am for being in the and forgetting to make fucking sales. So when it's like, I always say that if you're high-fiving with one hand, make sure you're making a sale with the other one.
It took me almost 20 years into my trading career to make that same conclusion, where basically there's once or twice a year there's that moment you load your brokerage account up and you're making absolutely stupid amounts of money in a day, and
Yeah.
in your brain you start thinking about all the things you're going to fucking buy and all the things you're going to do with this money. And from my years of experience, almost always those gains are given back if you don't find a way to keep them. And it doesn't have to be sell right at that moment, but you have to use the euphoria, that moment of like when you're so excited about a stock and how much money you're making, to realize, well, you got to sell into this in order to keep those profits. Turning paper profits to real profits is the only real sustainable way of actually trading over the long term, right?
Oh, totally, man. My .com bubble account reached its high watermark. When I looked at it, I was in an SUV on my way to the airport on the way to Vegas with a beer in my hand, and things couldn't have been brighter. And that's like literally like another symbol, like, man, like how do you know that that's not like a freaking, you're literally like looking in the mirror and admiring how well you've done. Like,
Yeah.
look at this, and it's like, oh my God almighty. But that was, that was the single best trading lesson of my life, Patrick, honestly, is walking face first into the dot-com bubble,
Oh,
because I had just left the commodity trading desk at Goldman Sachs and started my own dot-com bubble trading company. And commodity markets went on a 10-year super cycle run, and the market that I had jumped into got flattened. So you can imagine that, under that, what a resonant lesson in timing that was for me, right? It just literally
indeed.
was like, yeah, a whole life recognition of like what ringing the bell too loudly sounds like, and but that's
You
what
know,
I did. Yeah, and you live with those decisions, and you're smarter for the next 20, so it's
For
okay.
me, for me, I had a similar moment when I launched a covered call writing newsletter right at the peak of 2007, 2008. I couldn't think of a better time to fucking. Uh,
That is amazing. Yeah, literally, man.
and
Yeah.
we have the lessons in that thing. Anyway, Tony, thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure all of our listeners here will appreciate the words of wisdom. Thanks, buddy.
Oh, thank you
Thanks
for
for coming
calling
on.
me, looking for them. That's really an honor coming from you guys, Patrick. Thank you very much.